The following program contains strong language and scenes which some viewers may find distressing.
Should I press play?
Yeah, press play.
Alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala Rasulullah. I'm going to keep this short and to the point. I and thousands like me have forsaken everything for what we believe, our driving motivation.
I knew Mohammed Sadiq Khan. He was a good friend of mine.
I'm sure by now the media's painted a suitable picture of me, this predictable propaganda machine.
The Sid that I knew was a good man. The guy in the video, I don't know who that was. Something was wiped from him.
Your democratically elected governments continuously perpetuate atrocities against my people all over the world.
Even the way he was speaking, I didn't recognize the way he was speaking in those mind-numbing, closed-down cliches. It's like a bad movie, kind of Al-Qaeda speak. We will fight the infidel. He never spoke like that.
Our religion is Islam, obedience to the one true God, Allah.
I'm unable to work out how he got from there to there.
We are at war and I'm a soldier.
And that's the thing I still sometimes struggle to work out.
Now you too will taste the reality of this situation.
There have been a series of terrorist attacks in London.
But this is the biggest crime scene in English history.
So far, all the evidence, the coordinated explosions, points to Al-Qaeda.
How did 4 young British men end up becoming suicide bombers in their own country?
What makes a person do such a thing?
You can't unsee what you see. It stays with you forever. But you must always talk about it. It's the only way that people remember the atrocity that happened. I was assigned the job of removing the bodies from Russell Square. The first time we walked down to make our way to the scene, there was a foot at the end of the platform, just a foot on its own. It was a sign of things to come. The carnage in that one carriage is really unfathomable. Each body is a different experience, and you've got to remove them, and you've got to remove them in a sensitive way. They belong to someone. They're someone's loved one. There was a poor woman. If I do that, that's like she was across the seats. I can't forget the pleading on her face, because she had no legs. You see, her legs being blown off, so there was no one to help her. She was going to die there. It was impossible to save her. Having information from the other scenes, we were aware it was a suicide bomber. So each individual body was treated as a suspect. It was a priority to identify the bomber and remove that body as quick as possible so that it can be forensically worked on. We didn't know who the bomber was. We had a good idea. His body was mostly brains on the top of the carriage, which I scraped off.
Floral tributes grow as the wait for news continues. The authorities say they're working as fast as they can in the conditions to deliver the answers so many people seek.
I need to know what happened to my Anthony. He's the love of my life. My first son. My first son, 26. But I need to know where he is. I need to know what happened to him.
So far, all the evidence, the coordinated explosions, and the ruthlessness in picking soft civilian targets all points to Al-Qaeda.
This is Scotland Yard's command centre, coordinating every incident, every response. But there are thousands more working behind the scenes on the investigation, both here and at MI5. And there is a real sense of urgency.
We had 4 bodies at the sites of the explosions. Their bodies were so significantly disrupted that they could only have been the 4 bombers. But to be able to positively identify them, you need forensic evidence. What we had were identity documents of a Mohammed Sadiq Khan found at 2 different bomb scenes. Mohammed Sadiq Khan was a classroom assistant from West Yorkshire. For the investigation, it was the first major line of inquiry.
We express our revulsion at this murderous carnage. We will pursue those responsible, wherever they are.
Even though I was in no way involved in anything that happened, I would be frightened to show my face. I'm a Pakistani man. I feel like I was born with a target on my back and I don't want to put one on my front.
Tell me about Mohammed Sadiq Khan.
I called him Sid. We were good friends. Maybe it's quite difficult for people to hear, but he was a sweet guy. And this might sound really strange, but the person that I knew would actually take the piss out of a lot of the dogmatic teachings of Islam, or talk about some of the imams and how simplistic they spoke. He'd take the mick out of it. Sid was a youth worker. The young people looked up to him. He was a very earnest guy. He had a very clear idea of what was right and wrong. He was very much affected by things that he thought were wrong.
Come on, Eddie, you bang your arms there. Right, I'll catch you 2 messing around with my brother again. I'm going to come round to your house and tell you about it.
And if he thought something was wrong, he would take matters into his own hands. He would do something about it. He really cared, you know. He used to get the kids off heroin. We'd actually snatch them, chain them up in a room and make them go cold turkey. People tell me who had that it was one of the best things that happened to them in all their life. They're incredibly grateful. Nothing else could get them off heroin. He was fearless, authentic, from Beeston, like me. Beeston was shit and was recognised to be shit. It was like a dumping ground. Huge amounts of racism, poverty, deprivation, big history of drug problems. It was just a place where people had very little life chances. Let's be clear, I mean, we had fuck all in the area. What were we going to do? Work in a takeaway, be a taxi driver. Very hard for people who've not had that experience to understand it.
Friends and families of the missing gathered outside the stations where their loved ones were last seen alive, looking for any slender hope that they may somehow have survived.
We watched the news constantly for any clues to where David might have been. We just started phoning hospitals. and got nowhere because they obviously weren't going to tell us anything. It was confidential, but you don't know that at the time. You're in a state of panic, you're in a state of fear, and the more they say no, the more fearful you become.
Robert Webb's sister Laura.
I actually went out and bought all the newspapers. We had them spread out all over the floor, desperately combing them to find out any information at all. And there was a knock at our front door, late morning, and there was a young police officer in plain clothes, and she held up a warrant card and asked if she could come in. That was a real heart-sink moment. Anyway, she came in and she explained she was from Greater Manchester Police, and she'd simply been ordered to come and take mouth swabs. And of course, we asked lots of questions, you know, what is he, what's happening, and so on and so on. And I think she was quite embarrassed, really, because I genuinely do not know. I've just been told to come and take mouth swabs. So she took the mouth swabs, and then she took the tubes, and there was a motorcycle courier outside. She gave them to him, and he vanished. We were just so anxious and so worried, so full of dread, thinking about David. Where is he? We hope he's okay.
My son was missing since Wednesday. Hasib had told me he was going to London, sightseeing with his friends. I was in a very bad state. I do not remember how many times I called him, but there was no answer. The liaison officer came to see us. It felt like she had made certain assumptions. I did not like it at all.
I visited the family of a Hasib Hussein. I remember Mr. Hussein's oldest son. I felt he had something to say, but couldn't say it in front of his father. So just before I left the house, I surreptitiously passed my telephone number on a piece of paper to him. I just felt something.
I could not sit still. All I could think about was my son and where he could be. It was like a horrible nightmare. I was fearful. I asked some people about Hasib, but no one could tell me anything. I then went into the Iqra bookshop. I asked the man at the counter if he knew Hasib. He told me he didn't, but I knew he was lying. Finally, he said, Hasib may be with Sid. I asked who Sid was and where I could find him. He then said he may be with Shahzad Tanveer. They were also missing. I suspected something was very wrong.
Later that evening, I got a phone call from Hasib's older brother, the one I'd passed the phone number to. He told me that he had searched his brother's bedroom after I left and found a mobile phone. There was only one number on it, so he rang it, and a gentleman answered. He said that he had rented a property to his brother at Alexandra Grove. Hasib's brother went round to the address, looked in the window. He said to me, I think something awful has been going on in there. You better get round there.
Rush-hour carnage in Madrid. 3 trains have blown up in a devastating attack on the Spanish capital.
191 people were killed and more than 1,500 injured. The multiple, synchronized nature of the attacks is Al-Qaeda's signature.
We had all lived through the consequences of the police raids in Madrid, where terrorists who were still within the premises blew the place up when the police entered, killing a police officer. So there was a marked sense of potential danger in the search of Alexandra Grove.
One of the big things that you're considering when you know it's a high-threat task, are they targeting me? But once you're ready to go down the road, it's just you. You're on your own, you're down there, facing off with whatever it is you're dealing with.
Armed officers surround a house preparing for a raid.
General rule of thumb, everybody's expecting you to go through the door. So make your own entry point. Pop the window to gain access into the building and climb through and started looking round. Just couldn't believe what I'd walked into. Lots of tools, wires, batteries, respirators, mobile phone boxes, a hot plate in both bedrooms, empty ice bag wrappers. It was immediately obvious it was a bomb factory. Every surface was covered in this white powder where they'd clearly been boiling off chemicals and trying to make homemade explosives. When you stood in the bathroom, the bath was about a third filled with water with these tubs floating around with like an orange material in. It's actually bubbling. You could see it bubbling and as if it was boiling. I did 23 years in the military. It took me to Afghanistan, Northern Ireland and Iraq. I'd never seen that before. It was awful. It was in a real mess. I could tell that the bombers definitely weren't a professional terrorist organization. It was amateur hour. For the police, so the place was a jackpot, but extremely, extremely dangerous. I was like, right, we really need to get out of here right now and rethink what we're doing.
As soon as the police found the bomb factory, the world sort of exploded. And the next day, there was like wall-to-wall counter-terrorism officers all over Beeston.
All this after passing your number to Hasib's brother. Lucky, isn't it?
It wasn't luck. Women's intuition. I get a lot of that.
Alexandra Grove contained a vast amount of forensic evidence, including DNA. And that's in addition to identity documents found on the sites of the explosions. Quickly thereafter, the CCTV from King's Cross gives us the images of the 4 bombers carrying rucksacks. Mohammed Sadiq Khan,
a father of one, it's believed he was responsible for the bomb at Edgware Road.
Shazad Tanweer,
a 22-year-old sports science student, thought the cricket fan blew himself up on the Aldgate train.
Jermaine Lindsay,
a British resident born in Jamaica, was responsible for the Russell Square attack.
And Hasib Hussein.
Hasib Hussein, he is suspected of being the bomber on the bus in Tavistock Square.
I had to tell the family that their son, who was the day before the missing person, potentially a victim, was now a suspect in this atrocity. And we're telling them, we're going to examine your home from top to bottom. No choice, you're out. We're coming in, and you are potentially suspects as well. My role altered drastically. I am now working with a murderer's family. I was a bit nervous, but it's got to be done. I just had to get on with it.
They said Hasib had something to do with the blasts. was holding my wife's hand as she heard the news. Her hand slipped away. The liaison officer told us our house was surrounded by armed officers and had a warrant to search the house. My whole body was shaking. I was shocked and in disbelief.
This CCTV picture is the first to show the 4 bombers together. On the left is teenager Hasib Hussein, the youngest of the bombers. A short time later, and Hasib Hussein is captured again, a clearer image showing his rucksack carrying the explosives.
The television started showing pictures of Hasib. I kept telling myself, Hasib could not be involved. My mind was full of suspicion. I couldn't accept that he would go to London and bomb a bus.
They didn't take it well. Mr. Hussein collapsed on the sofa. He would just say, no, it's not my son. You've doctored the CCTV. It's not Hasib. You know, he just wouldn't have it. And eventually I just stopped trying to convince him. I couldn't tell him. I can understand the reason for their denial. It's an absolute mammoth thing to get your head round, that your son, who was perfection in their eyes, could have done this. It must have been an awful thing for them to come to terms with.
Well, there's still a sense of huge shock here in West Yorkshire that the bombers were living amongst people here. They were part of their communities. Many people were their friends and they knew their families.
Hasib Mir Hussein, just 18 years old, from the multiracial Holbeck area of Leeds.
He was a good pillar to community, I can't say no else, because he was.
Shazad Tanweer, a 22-year-old sports science student.
He was a very kind and caring person. He was respected by everybody.
Mohammed Sadiq Khan, his house is shrouded in plastic as forensic experts search for clues.
Can't be Mr. Khan, it can't be, they must have got it wrong. Somebody's got it wrong somewhere. But I just feel that something's gone totally wrong for that guy to have been involved, because he was a really nice guy.
As soon as we got the names of the 4 bombers, we were certainly digging into everything you can discover about their lives. The spotlight is on everybody who surrounds somebody who becomes a terrorist. Who gave them any material assistance? Who may have known they were going to do it and did nothing about trying to prevent them?
Tonight, Western intelligence agencies are working hard to establish if there are direct links between the bombers and those around Osama bin Laden. Evidence, especially the connections of the bombers to Pakistan, is raising that possibility.
When I heard about what happened, I couldn't make sense of what was going on. And then it kind of sunk in. The last time I saw Sid, he'd been to Pakistan. And he came back and he said, oh, you know, I want to catch up with you. So I said, look, I'm really busy. And he said, no. He was really insistent. Really, really insistent. So I met him. And he seemed very different. Really peaceful. Now, obviously, looking back, I realized that he had planned what he was going to do. In his own mind, he was going to die and he was saying goodbye to me. But I didn't know that at the time, obviously. Nobody had a clue. Nobody had a clue. You know, there were only a few times in my life that I completely broke down sobbing. I mean, just sobbing. I mean, for what he did, the damage he caused. What the fuck did you think you were going to achieve?
In the quiet suburbs of Leeds, police continue to mount a large-scale security operation around the homes of 3 of the 4 alleged suicide bombers. This follows the breakthrough yesterday when anti-terrorist police carried out raids on the houses.
The bombers, they'd been working there for a while, producing their homemade explosives. It's shockingly easy. Yeah, you can walk around any popular DIY outlet and you can buy the components. I know there was in excess of 100 explosive-related items removed. 4 of them haven't done that. There was no way 4 of them had done that on their own. They recovered something like 5, 6, 7 respirators. So from when they were working in there.
Hints at more people.
Hints at more people. In a bedroom, on the sideboard was a day sack, a backpack with what looked like a 5 to 10 litre tub inside that was filled with this orange explosive material, ready to be picked up and taken away.
Was that a 5th device?
I believe it was. It was just waiting, it was just sat there. Did somebody bottle out?
What the police will be doing now is trying to reconstruct as much of the bombers' lives over the last year or two as they possibly can, working backwards, trying to understand who they were, who they met with, what their lifestyles were, in great detail.
In Beeston, there's no trust of the police whatsoever. There was this big thing about all the Muslims are terrorists, just going to raid everybody. Like, you're guilty by association. You know, you're in danger. I remember being quite terrified.
Attention has been focused on this bookstore. We know that 3 of the men were customers here.
The Iqra bookshop, it was a place where there were Islamic books, videos, and there's a place in the back with a kitchen where people would hang out. I can remember seeing Sid there, joking around. There was one time where a guy called me in. Look at this video. There was a guy being, I think, beheaded. What the fuck do you want to show me that for? It was sickening. It was shocking. I never went back there again.
Beeston this afternoon, almost an area under siege. The focus, of course, for these police investigations, which have seen dramatic and fast-moving developments.
And now people are left wondering how men that they knew could be capable of such horrific attacks.
Just don't know to trust in the Muslim Asian community anymore. Now I've got 3 young children at home, aged 12, 13 and 10. I'm thinking, you know, they're going to be in school one day and the school's going to go. Because there's Asian boys in the school, are they going to be took away by the families, brainwashed and brought back and blown the school up or anything?
It is very, very scary living in the community that everyone thinks everyone is together, but really it's not. It's just not a nice place to live at the moment.
Why do you think that Mohammed Sadiq Khan was radicalised?
You know, people ask, how could this happen? But if you look closely enough, you can probably find some reasons probably why that would happen. Some people might have drifted towards radicalisation because primarily they felt they didn't belong. Our parents had a sense of who they were around Pakistan, but so our sense of who we were formed from, you know, the toxic environment that we lived in.
But they never asked us if we wanted them. We didn't want them. We've always hated them the mortal sights on them.
We grew up with the far right. The National Front targeted Bradford, Burnley, Oldham. And don't forget, our parents first came across and were putting up with it. But the second generation, we'd had enough of it.
From the city centre, the rioting spread and continued into the early hours, just after the National Front threatened to march through the city.
I mean, the Bradford riots happened because there's lots and lots of just frustration. The National Front you know, they're going to come, they're going to march through the town and do all these things to us. I think people just had enough by then. Just the constant racism, it sinks into you. The language that we'd use against you all the time, like, you dirty fucking packy. The word dirty and packy to me was synonymous. I really grew up believing that there was something wrong with me. I was less than human, I was subhuman. Extremists see that pain. You've had pain, you've suffered shame, humiliation, they know that. And then they'll basically say, oh, the pain is so intolerable that if you go and do something like a big act, basically you'll have great meaning and you'll be free of the pain. That's what these fuckers do.
I've realized who is your enemy, but
there is nothing that could excuse what happened, but you need to understand why it happened so that it doesn't happen again.
The nature of intelligence work is that you're trying to get ahead of those who wish to do us harm. That is what MI5 is trained to try and do. We became aware of Al-Qaeda and the Islamist threat early on in the 90s. After 9/11 and our involvement in Iraq, we did warn the government that would be likely to increase the terrorist threat. The government knew that that was a possibility, indeed a probability.
pull your troops out of Iraq. And if you do not pull your troops out, you will get bloodshed on the streets of London.
MI5 had been worried about the radicalisation of a small proportion of British Muslims, some of them third-generation British, who turned to this ideology that the West was engaged in hostility towards the Muslim world. The narrative was that Islam was under attack from the West, that Western democracies were complicit in attacks on Muslims, and the people who'd voted them in, the electorate of those Western democracies, therefore deserved to be punished.
As the investigation continues, claims are emerging of security failures in the run-up to the bombings. It's an allegation British police deny.
Regarding the 4 people who went and did the 7/7 bombing, I have more than an insight because I am one of the pioneers of violent jihad in the UK. We would use Islamic teachings, to show that it is a virtue to fight for the oppressed and to bring justice to those who have been exploited or harmed. Recruitment takes place by talking about victimhood, talking about domination from non-Muslims. If you have suffered racism, they would come into play as well. We normalized the idea of fighting back and terrorism. I've seen a lot of people, normal people, become jihadists. We would like to be able to predict who are more likely to turn. In my understanding, that's impossible. It can't be done. Someone who seems to be perfectly lovable can turn, and they can be easily misled or sidestepped into other people's ambitions. The UK gave refuge to a lot of Islamist people. Abu Hamza gained a lot of traction. And Abu Qatada. And Sheikh Abdul Al-Faisal was an utter extremist.
When there's a jihad, you need to know who to kill. So it's important to know who's a Muslim and who's a Kafir.
Together, we all belong to the same so-called jihad enterprise. We traveled up and down the country preaching. People gravitated around me, and at times I would have gatherings of thousands of people. Islam is very easily hijacked or used by ignorant imams or someone like me who was half-baked in understanding Islam and religious material to say, well, I want to go to paradise, dying, fighting for the sake of God. And once you're in paradise, you are happy forever and everything is forgiven.
Britain's Muslim community has once again become the focus of the world's media. But for the vast majority of British Muslims, there's nothing but contempt for the terrorists.
We are very dismayed, very shocked, confused, and I think also embarrassed as well that young people from our neighborhoods and our community could commit this level of atrocities.
Many here feel that their community will be blamed for the bomb attacks.
Just feel the eyes burning through your skin. It's like, you know, is he one of those people that would do that kind of stuff?
Islamophobia is a common thing now. It's open to be Islamophobic.
We are fearful of backlash.
After 7/7, I was asked to attend a meeting in Beeston. What I was told is that law enforcement went in heavy-handed, labelled the whole community as being complicit and found them guilty. Once they'd done that, they lost the trust of that community. And of course, they started to arrest people. And so I was being told, you need to come up there and you need to tell people what their rights are. When I got there, it was a packed-out meeting. Everyone was terrified. You could see from people's eyes that they didn't know what was going on. And they were desperate for information and advice. One of my first clients was accused of being involved in it on the basis that he was simply going into a house where Mohammed Sadiq Khan lived, and he had nothing to do with 7/7. But the police were under huge pressure. They were desperate for information. They just needed to get something to satisfy the public. And yes, I suspect more people knew about it than perhaps is even known today. But the assumption was these Asians, they ate together, they prayed together, therefore they must know what each other was thinking and doing. And that, of course, is stereotypical, that's prejudicial, that is institutional racism in action.
In the immediacy of that week, we had no thoughts about the bombers, the fact that it was a terrorist attack. I know that the newspapers had published the names of the 4 bombers, but we were so focused on David that just passed us by. We weren't interested, we were just solely focused on news about David. I have moments of real clarity, but there are whole days over which we have no memories. I mean, Tuesday, Wednesday of the week after the attack, I have absolutely no idea what we did. But I remember the phone call at 6:20 in the evening. And it was a police officer saying, "We need to come and see you. Are you at home?" And that was a, oh my God moment. And I said, "You're telling me that David's died?" And they were resistant from telling me. I said, "No, you wouldn't want to come and see me if it was bad, if it was good news. You'd tell me now, wouldn't you?" And they said, "Yes, we can confirm that David died at Edgware Road." So I came in, sat down and told her. And we had a hug and we had a cry. And we told some friends, we told family. And then we went to bed. A difficult night, we didn't really sleep. We tried to remember all the good things, which was easy because we had so many. He was very bright, very quick-minded, a lively lad. And I'm his father, so I'm going to tell you he's the best son that's ever lived. The last time we saw David was the night before the attack. David was invited down to London, a bit of a last-minute invitation. So we had to do a journey plan to get him from Euston to Farringdon, the Circle line. I remember saying to him, at that time of the morning, it'll be rammed. So when the doors open, take 2 paces forward and grab a pole, and just do not move. David was killed by Mohammed Sadiq Khan at Edgware Road. He got on the Circle line, but went the wrong way. It was his first trip to London, and his first time on the tube. So that was hard to hear.
With fresh leads emerging all the time, in Buckinghamshire, police have been scouring a house which it's believed had been rented by the King's Cross bomber.
Jermaine Lindsay, he was the 4th bomber. A 19-year-old from a very different demographic background who is a convert to Islam at some point in his teens.
Jermaine Lindsay's classmates said they found him increasingly difficult to talk to in the final years of school.
And he came back with this totally different attitude.
And said he was a Muslim.
One summer, did he?
One summer.
I think so.
One summer.
And like he was saying.
He took Urdu lessons, and he was passionate about his religion, passionate, and that was his life. His religion was his life.
Yeah, well.
It appears that he had a challenging family and domestic background and seems to have completely changed personality, and then turns up as one of the 4 bombers on the 7th of July.
Was that a big question mark for you? How are they connected?
Early days, but then the common denominator became geographic. We learnt that Jermaine Lindsay had met up with the others because they frequented the same areas and had similar influences.
I cannot deny playing a vital role, a pivotal role in the Islamization of Jermaine Lindsay.
We're getting bodies out for probably 10 days. We were all exhausted. We were down there 18 hours a day minimum, every day. It would take about 8 hours or more to get one body out.
How do you feel towards the bomber?
It's a hard question, isn't it? To see the amount of death that he caused, innocent people, well, can I hate him? I don't know. I could probably hate him. And there is a photograph of me driving an electric train, but it's like I'm not there. I look into my eyes and I don't see me. It's when it's time to reflect upon it. And the subsequent effect it's had on your life. You've seen senseless death. It's always there, it doesn't go away. It's something you don't want to burden anybody else with because of the horrors of it. It's a personal thing. I remember the last day when we left Russell Square and we walked into Russell Square Gardens, which was just a sea of flowers and I just cried. I sobbed. Russell Square's the best thing I ever did in my life. Because I looked after the people that were dead.
Police officers came to tell us that David was in the mortuary and would we like to go and see him. We'd been warned that it would be difficult, but you have to see your son. You can't not see him. So we went in and sat with him for a while. There was no conscious thoughts going through our minds at that point. Our brains were just full of emotion. So there was no real thought. I remember we were just together. And then we came out and I was given a cardboard box the size of a shoebox. And in it were the few bits and pieces of David's belongings. David's birthday is in March, so for his birthday I bought him a watch. It was completely unmarked, despite the fact David was only a metre away from the bomb. The next thing that we decided we'd do was we'd get on the tube, go to Edgware Road. So we were just passengers getting on a very busy train and we just went a few stops, just like all the other commuters. It was just something that Janet and I needed to do, to be on that journey that David must have taken. And we also felt it was an important message because we were prepared to give anything to the bombers that they'd achieved something by making people fearful of the tube.
I have finally and reluctantly come to the conclusion that my son was involved in the bus blast. Hasib must have perceived his victims as faceless strangers, rather than people with loves, lives, families and careers. Why did he seek this notoriety? Did he convince himself he would be rewarded?
Mr. Hussein went through the usual stages of grief, disbelief, anger. He was very angry at one point. We had a few angry days, you know, and then I would just make my visits brief. I knew when to withdraw. I do wonder why Hasib did what he did, because he came from such a loving family. When it became apparent that they had no knowledge of their son's involvement, all they wanted was his body back. That's all they kept saying, we just want his body back. Why can't we have his body back? And of course I couldn't. It took a long time to get his body back. There wasn't much of him to come back, to be honest. Very, very little. And as soon as they did get the body back, that was it. I wasn't allowed in the house anymore. The shutters came down.
Was Hasib entirely aware of what he was doing? And if so, what inspired him to blow himself up? Could I have done anything to spark my son's radicalization? If I or any member of my family had suspected anything about Haseeb, I would have spoken to him, but we never saw anything suspicious. This is the uncomfortable truth. It is a truth I have wrestled with over the years.
The Metropolitan Police Commissioner has appealed to Muslim communities to end what he called a denial that there were extremists in their midst.
It is not the police, it is not the intelligence services who will defeat terrorism, it is communities who will defeat terrorism. We have to seize a moment in which the Muslim communities of Britain changes from a current position of shock and disbelief into active engagement in counter-terrorism.
The jihadist rhetoric had been so rampant in the UK.
Prepare as much as you can.
You know, people are bound to get radicalized.
From strength and from horse to terrified, terrorize.
For a long time, I lived for death, I believe, because I was committed to attaining what we considered martyrdom. That is the problem. The people like myself or Muhammad Siddiq Khan, we believed in what we were going to do or did to have been according to what pleases God. But it was wrong. By the grace of God, I have been afforded the time to think, to learn, to reflect and change. So I do what I do now. If I had met Muhammad Siddiq Khan, I would have sat down with him and said, "Brother, who convinced you against the Prophet's teaching? Why are you so naive? That this is not Islam. This is something God hates. This is something the Prophet would not have approved." What I would try and foster is think for yourself. Who are you? You are accountable to God. Much of jihad is waged because we want to help suffering people. We are not taught to see the suffering on the other side. That's where the mistake lies.
After 7/7, once the bomber's identity was known, you wonder whether could we have prevented what had happened. You need to look back to see if we'd missed something, if there were lessons to be learned. Looking back, we discovered Mohammed Siddiq Khan and Shahbaz Tanweer in the margins of the crevice plot. The plan was to kill large numbers of people. Their targets were nightclubs, synagogues, and shopping centres. We had extensive coverage of that plot, and we knew who the plotters were. Our judgment at the time, and I'm sure this was correct, was that Mohammed Siddiq Khan and Shahbaz Tanweer weren't part of the crevice plot. The leader of the crevice had something like 4,000 contacts. It's not feasible to identify all of those. Omar Khayyam was the leader of the crevice plot.
When 7/7 happened, I was at the Old Bailey representing Omar Khayyam.
And I suppose you had absolutely no idea there was any connection.
Oh, I had no idea at the time that there was any connection with any of this, but I realised, having done a few terrorism cases, that the same names came up, the same methodology came up. There was links, whether directly or indirectly. There was a network, and that was clear.
bro?
How long does it take to get to the training camp?
You go into the tribal areas. I'll tell you up there you can get your head cut off. Don't tell your real name to no one.
With regards to the baby, I'm debating whether or not to say goodbye.
When the time comes for you to leave at the end of the day, tell them you love them. It's because we love the Islamic way of life this much. That's why we stay away from them. I know it's better for them. It's a one-way ticket, bruv.
Not got too long to go now, and I'm gonna really miss you. I'll do what I'm doing for the sake of Islam. I just so much wanted to be, but I have to do this thing for our future.
During the wiretap in the car, they are discussing travelling to Pakistan to go to terrorist training camps. Would that not trigger the need to identify this person?
We didn't know of that till after 7/7. But even had we picked it up at the time, they were talking about leaving and not coming back. There was clearly no plot. There was no 7/7 plot.
Pakistan, do you feel like that is a point where they link up with Al-Qaeda for the first time?
What I feel or not feel is irrelevant. But guessing, it appears that while they were there, it was suggested to them that their efforts would be better spent attacking the UK.
Your democratically elected governments continuously perpetuate atrocities against my people all over the world.
Whether they thought that for themselves, or instructed, or inspired, I don't know.
We are at war, and I'm a soldier. Now you too will taste the reality of this situation.
We need to establish a number of things. Who supported them? Who financed them? Who trained them? Who encouraged them?
I feared that Mohammed Sadiq Khan and Shahzad Tanweer, they were part of a larger network that were going to carry out another attack. 7/7 wasn't just an isolated event.
We're getting reports of a series of incidents.
We're going now, please keep moving.
This could be a second wave of attacks.
It's a bomb. You're trying to kill us.
What went on was madness. Residents were fleeing for their lives.
They're not warriors. They were just cowards.
If you have been affected by any of the issues raised in this programme, help is available online at sky.com/viewer support.